Detective Proc, when you were meeting with him, that you had been flirting with John?
Yes, I told him about that.
Okay. And did Detective Proc and Officer Fang give you some literature after you met with them?
Yes. Well, after I met with Vang, there were some individuals that they provided me with a folder full of pamphlets to get help and counsel during a tough time like this.
Did you go to counseling?
Yes, I did.
All right. Now, I'm going to move from talking about that to talking about the period of this happening. First of all, before this happened, where Jason was looking at your iPod,
Yes.
did you break off with Alex before that occurred?
Yes.
Do you remember time-wise how recent it was before Jason looked at your iPod?
It was briefly before approximately.
Like a day or two? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Briefly?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm going to ask you some questions now about that period between
All right.
you moving back home, breaking off with Jason, then breaking off with Alex. First of all, why did you break off with Alex? Let me ask you that first.
I broke off with Alex because during this time there was so much going on, and he wanted my love and vulnerability, and at that time I wasn't ready for a relationship. I felt there was just so much going on. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to work on my previous relationship yet. I wasn't ready.
And during this period, what were you doing generally with your life? You said you were living with your mother, I believe,
Yes.
right? And living with your mother, were you working, or what
Yes,
was
I was.
going on with your life?
So I moved back home with my mom, and I applied to a school that I graduated from. And I started soon after working as a paraprofessional in the kindergarten through fourth grade special education room.
And besides working, were you talking much with your Jason during that time?
Yes, I was.
What were your feelings or your thoughts about Jason during this time in March?
During this time, lots of feelings of love, from the love we had when we first started a relationship, memories from when we first started. Just being away from him made me miss him, and I was feeling again a lot of that love.
Were you texting about that?
All of the time, yes.
Was Jason reciprocating your texts?
Yes.
Did there, in the middle of March, did you go to Eau Claire and spend any time with Jason?
Yes.
Just tell us about that briefly.
I went and I spent some time with Jason. We had started sleeping with each other again and talking about possibly maybe getting counseling, thinking about all the things we had said to each other in the past, just seeing if maybe this really needed to work out because of how much we did love each other.
And when you said you started sleeping with him,
Yes.
Where did you spend some time, a couple of nights with him or anything in Eau Claire?
Yes, I spent a couple of nights with him. We got a few hotel rooms. We didn't really want to be at the apartment.
Okay. After spending a couple of nights with Jason, do you recall what time that was? Was it like the date? Do you have any memory of what the exact dates were?
I have no memory of the exact dates, no.
Okay. Did you return after spending a couple of nights to Jason's to your mother's house?
I did, yes.
And what happened when you got back to your mom's?
Well, my mom wasn't supportive of me continuing or exploring the idea of rekindling the relationship I had with Jason. And me being her child, and she was my mom, we got into an argument. Of course, I knew what I wanted, and she disagreed, so I moved out after that.
Okay. Let me ask you then about going, so did your mom feel the same way about Alex that she felt about Jason in terms of what she expressed to you?
She had some mixed feelings about Alex as well.
And when you broke up with Alex, how did you break up with him?
I regretfully broke up with him through text.
Why did you do it through text?
I did it through text because I did it in a rushed way. I just wanted to just be done with all of this drama.
Okay. We'll come back to talking about you and Alex later, but I'm going to ask you, after your mother was upset with you because you were saying Jason and asked you to leave, where did you go?
I went to my dad's.
And is that your father, Joe Shane Carlin, who we saw in court?
Yes.
All right. What is your father's main employment?
He's a correctional officer.
And besides his correctional officer primary,
yes,
does he have a do-it-yourself or secondary business that he owns?
He has a tree cutting business that I helped name when I was about 5.
Did you work with him at that tree cutting business?
All of the time, yes.
And when you worked with him, did you use knives at all?
It was a part of every day.
When he, in addition to knives and the tree cutting service, did your father, I'm going to call him your father, is your adoptive father?
Yes, he's my father. He's my dad.
Did he give you or let you have other knives in your car?
Yes, he seemed to always give me one or want me to have one in different places.
There's been discussion here about the knife that that you used, or the knife that was in your car that the police found by the side of the road, the knife that was involved in the knife fight with you and Alex. And was that, and how did you get that knife?
Objection, Your Honor, to the
sustained
characterization.
argumentative.
Okay, the knife we're talking about, how did you get that knife?
That knife was a knife that my dad had given me. He always likes to make sure I'm prepared for every situation. So various EMT knives he would give to me to break glass. It has seatbelt cutters. He just wants me to be prepared. It had been in and out of the house. He has a few of them, yes.
And that particular knife, did you put it in your car on the morning of March 22nd?
No.
Do you know when you put it in your car?
No, it was in and out always.
Okay. What would your dad, specifically with the use of knives, what would your father tell you about that?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, it goes to her state of mind, not the truth of the matter asserted. Let me rephrase the question. Maybe it'll be more clear. Did your father ever say anything to you about having a knife in your car specifically for defending yourself?
Objection, hearsay.
Well, it's not offered for the truth.
No.
The matter is sort of just for what is in her state of mind, so
Correct.
I'll overrule the objection.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What did he tell you, or what do you recall him telling you?
What I recall my dad telling me, he told me many times, and he would always tell me, when you're in a situation with an individual or if someone's attacking you, that you need to do anything and everything you can to get away, to defend yourself. And he would tell me about, you can use knives, you can scratch, you can kick, you can fight.
Were you aware that there were firearms in his house?
Well aware.
Did you know where they were located?
Always, yes. He made me aware of this.
Were you able to have access to them?
Yes.
Did you learn how to use firearms when you were young?
Of course, he made sure of that.
Did you go hunting with your father?
I never hunted, but I've gone hunting many times.
Now, did you take a firearm with you when you left your father's house on the morning of March 22nd?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
All I was doing that day was going for some errands. There was no need for a weapon or a firearm or anything of that sense.
Was one of those errands that you were going to do on March 22nd, in your mind, was one of the things you wanted to do to talk to Alex?
Yes.
And so did you want to bring a gun with you to talk to Alex?
Absolutely not.
Were you afraid of Alex?
No.
All right. I'm going to ask you some specific communication that you had received on the evening of March 21st. Were you sent a picture on Instagram by Jason?
Yes, I was.
And that's a picture we've seen. That's an evidence of the bathroom wall.
Yes, it is.
After you received that picture, what did you do?
Well, I wasn't happy about it,
did you have then a voice conversation with Jason?
Yes, I did call
in
him.
addition to texting?
Yep.
And when you saw that picture, did you have some thoughts in your mind about who had written your phone number and, you know,
Barista, or maybe some of the kitchen boys, as they're called.
what do you mean by kitchen boys?
Kitchen boys, well, that's what they call the workers who work in the kitchen side of race-eject lanes, which is called the nucleus. Just a bunch of guys.
Like cooks, chefs?
Cooks, chefs.
Did you, in your mind, did you think Alex had written it?
No.
Your Honor, then I'm going to object to this whole line of questioning as not being relevant.
Well, the state brought this in for some reason. I think her state of mind about it.
I'm going to write.
Thank you. Were you planning to mention it to Alex?
Yes, I was.
What was your intent with telling Alex about this?
My intent with telling Alex about this was just to ask him, like, how do you think they got my number? It kind of sucks that this is going on. There's a lot of drama. Do you know who might be doing it? So I could ask them that this isn't right. Can you stop, please?
All right. Before, in the period of time where you were at home
Yes.
in March, were you writing any journals?
Yes, I was.
I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 365.
Yes.
And what's the title of that journal?
This journal is Ezra McCandless, Silence Broken.
I'm also showing you what's been marked as 366. Is there a title on that journal?
There's no title, but it's called Journal 2.
Okay. Over what period of time were you writing these two journals?
It was a period of a couple weeks. I had been visiting someone for counseling, and they told me maybe to write down.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Why were you writing the journals?
To express how I felt about everything.
And were you doing it specifically because you were trying to have this be part of the therapeutic process for you?
Yes.
All right. So there's been some testimony about these journals being edited on March 21st.
Yes.
Did you open the journals on March 21st?
Yes. Over the period of weeks, I had finished it a couple weeks before, but as a writer, you always open it to correct misspellings, alignment of paragraphs. Every time I open it, it adds that it's been seen or edited.
Was this journal in a format called Google Docs?
Yes.
And in Google Docs, every time you open a document, does it update the date?
It does, yes.
Okay. Did you, you've reviewed these journals, right?
Of course, yes.
And were you going to send them to a friend named Julia Post?
Yes, I had sent them to her already.
And what was the purpose of doing that?
The reason why I spent time with a few weeks before and why I had sent them to her is she's great with grammar and she's great with words, so she's helping me out. She's kind of my consult for cleaning it up.
Okay. I'm going to put this now on the Elmo. We're not going to read everything, but I'm just going to ask you in this journal what you're talking about and why, just in summary form.
All right.
So just to summarize, this part of the journal, when you're talking about moving back, it was the past summer and you had moved. Where had you been before the summer you moved back with your parents?
The summer before I moved back with my parents was spent in Marinette, Wisconsin, and that's where I was starting my first year of secondary school.
Okay, so after your first year of, so secondary school for you, does that mean, are you referring to college?
Yes.
Okay, just some people call secondary school high school, so I just
That's
wanted
true.
to clarify
College.
that. Okay, and so after your first year of college, are you telling us you'd gone back home?
Yes, I am.
All right. Now, when you went back home, did you then write in your journal about your relationship with Jason Mangle?
Yes, I did.
You used this sentence: months have passed between us and love had grown. It's an ancient love so powerful it often scared both of us. I became sick and had the suspicion of what it could be. So what do you mean when you're writing in those passages?
What I mean by, as I said in there, an ancient love so powerful. Many times between me and Jason, our own philosophical discussions, we talk about past loves, being old spirit. We both consider ourselves, even though I'm young, to be very, very old spirits. So
Is that expression people use sometimes? Oh, he or she's an old soul?
yeah, all the time, all
Okay.
the time. He would describe me as his old soul. So as saying that this love, this passion, this love, it was just, we felt so much love and so much in common with each other right away that's just how I express that.
In the essay, did you go on to talk about your abortion?
Yes, I had.
And did you express how the abortion impacted your relationship with Jason Mango?
I expressed how it impacted us greatly, yes.
Okay. And did you then write in this journal about after, you said in this journal that you became, I think the word is, a husk of a woman.
Yes.
And what did you mean by that?
What I meant by that is after the operation and after everything that had happened, I felt like a part of myself had been taken away. I felt hollow inside.
You then start talking about two individuals invading your empty mind,
Yes.
dragging you down a rabbit hole, told what ideas to follow, masks you should wear. Can you explain what you meant when you wrote about that?
Yes. So during this incredible, vulnerable time when I had terminated my pregnancy, the two dominant voices I'm speaking of here are were friends, Alex and John Hansen. I was talking about in this how during my vulnerable state, I was being told kind of how to feel, how to get over things, what to do, just kind of I describe it as a mask, just kind of how to move past this in ways they thought might help, or what I should do, they thought.
So this is your feelings then, but as you were going through this, you talked about developing feelings of love for Alex.
Yes.
So in here you're expressing it completely differently.
Yes.
Why the difference?
The difference is coming out of the relationship.
I don't want you to look at this. I just want you to talk about how you feel.
All right. So coming out of the relationship, in that relationship, I felt all of this love and this warmth, and listening to him and him telling me what I should do and what I should think, essentially. In that moment, all I felt was that love. That's all I could notice. And then being completely removed from a relationship, and from that relationship, I noticed all of the red flags or things that really didn't fit right with me, and that it's opposite now because I'm expressing what I had ignored because of love.
Let me ask you this. Okay?
Yes.
In this,
Yes.
without putting on the screen, you wrote, I was an object even called fetish. And that it horrified you to be described as a fetish. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
What I meant by that in this essay, or journal as you can call it, was that the person I had loved at that time instead of just being me and wanting to be seen as me, they started to express how I was a fetish to them, how I identified, how I looked, what they wanted from me. Instead of essentially being, as a McCandless, the person, I was just the want, the fetish, the sexual aspects.
Is that how you felt at that time in your relationship with Alex?
Yes.
And you talk about what happened with John and vomiting and
Yes.
fears. And then you also then talked to that you had turned to your other friend for advice and concerns.
Yes.
And what do you mean by that? You would turn to your other friend. What were you writing about?
I had talked about in there turning to my other friend, being Alex, about what had happened between me and John.
And you said that when you turned to Alex, you wrote, you said guilt towards our friendship only to once again for it to turn to his desires of making me the boy he wanted. What did you mean by that?
When what had happened between me and John had happened, shortly after I went to go talk to Alex, I told him my fears about what had happened, the confusion.
What's Journal 2? What are you writing about in Journal 2?
In Journal 2, it was more of a reflection of the guilt, the pain, the relationship issues I had had. It was kind of disconnecting myself from another in a relationship and looking at that, reflecting on that and how I felt about that at that time.
Is that Journal 2 much more specific to your relationship with Alex Woodward?
Yes.
Okay. And again, you end that with saying, I do not my part in the abuse, I do not feel innocent. Are you referring also with Jason when you say I do not feel innocent? Who are you referring to?
I'm referring to all of it, to Jason, to all of my relationships at the time.
Okay.
My mother, my father.
Are you feeling that you're taking responsibility, or?
Yes, very much so.
Is that a theme in therapy? Was your,
yes.
That,
Objection.
Sustained.
were you wanting during this period of time to take responsibility for your own actions?
Very much so. I wasn't running from anything I've ever done. I was taking responsibility for my actions, and even if I didn't want to look at all of the ugly parts, I was going to do it because I have a responsibility to grow as a person, and that's a big step of that.
You ended that essay with, I know I can be human, I know I can be free, I know I can love, I know I can only strive to never do this again. What did you mean by that?
What I meant by that is to be more aware, to be more conscious of my relationships. What I meant by that is I can be human, I can express myself. I'm not hiding, and I'm not... Essentially, that was mostly about cheating and leaving someone for certain reasons.
And I think, did there's come a time where something interrupted that conversation?
Yes.
All right. Judd, do you want to take a lunch break now?
Well, I'm just kind of waiting to hear whether there's food. I'd like to go up until we're ready for the jury. We don't have any word yet, so as soon as we get word,
Okay.
we're going to break here real soon.
All right. All right. I asked you about an interruption, and
Yes.
you said there was an interruption.
Yes.
What did you hear that made you realize that somebody else was there?
What made me realize someone else was there is that I heard a ringtone very loudly, not far outside of the room we were in. I was surprised by that, kind of taken back.
I think I forgot to ask you this. What had you done with your car when you had gotten over to Alex's?
I left it running.
Why?
I often leave my car running because it's, I don't take care of my car like I should, and there's some times when if I don't leave it running for periods of time, it will just not start again, and I also didn't really think I was going to be there that long.
Were you afraid because your car's running, somebody might steal it?
No.
Okay.
It's an ugly car.
When you heard the ringtone, were you saying anything to the Alex about having Jason help him?
No.
Were you saying let him help you at all?
No.
Was Jason invited to come into the house?
No. He just let himself in.
All right. So had you heard a knock at the door or a bell ring or anything like that?
No, I didn't even know the door had opened. He just kind of burst in.
Were you surprised, or let me rephrase that, what was your feeling or your emotion when you heard Jason's ringtone?
I was surprised and just kind of, it shocked me. I was like, why did he just let himself in? What's going on?
And when Jason all of a sudden shows up on the scene,
Yes.
was there any change that you saw in Alex's demeanor?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us what that was?
After Jason just let himself in into Alex's home, I could tell that Alex, he was no longer sitting next to me like he was. He stood up, and he was very, I call it being bristled, but he seemed on edge.
What conversation took place with Jason, you, and Alex in the room?
Jason kind of burst into the room, and he was just using his hands a lot, and he was saying, "What's going on? Is everybody okay?" And he was talking, and I kind of stepped in, and I said, "Everything's fine, we're just talking." And trying to calm him down, I said, "We're fine, we can talk in a public place."
Who suggested public place?
Kind of all did. We came to this conclusion that we should go somewhere public.
But was there something to be afraid of that was going to happen in the bedroom?
No.
Were you concerned about what Jason might think, that you were in Alex's bedroom?
Yes.
And what was that about?
I knew that he'd probably jump to the conclusion, because that was our place where we talked, that he would assume that I had decided to sleep with him that day.
Had you decided to sleep with Alex on that day?
No.
So after this conversation with Jason, and again, is Alex showing any other reaction or any other part of that conversation?
He's, as I said, bristled. He's frustrated. He's a little, he started to get quiet, and I always see that as a sign that Alex isn't particularly very happy.
Who left the room first?
Jason.
After Jason left, what did you and Alex do?
I kind of looked at him and I said, "Well, I guess we both kind of were like, I guess we should go somewhere to talk."
All right. So did you and Alex leave the room?
Yes.
Where did you go?
We went downstairs and outside.
When you get downstairs and outside, what's going on?
I was so confused to see that there were police vehicles there. And Jason
Did you
was...
call the police?
No.
All right. At the time, did you know how the police happened to be there?
No, that's why it took me by surprise so much, that all of a sudden there's these 2 police vehicles, there's police officers. I was just like, what's going on?
Did the police officers come and talk to you at all?
Yes, they did.
Do you remember anything about that conversation?
I do, yes.
What do you recall?
I remember the usual police contact. They asked for my license and my name. They asked if everything was fine, and I said, "Yeah, we're going somewhere public to speak. Everything's fine. I had no concerns."
How long did you talk with the police for?
It wasn't very long, no.
And when you were talking with the police, was there anything worrisome to you?
No.
After the police left, were there any words exchanged between you and Jason, or Jason and Alex at all?
Yes, I had said a few things to Jason. We talked before we got in the car and left. Well, I talked to Jason before he rode off on his bike, and then I got back in the car and we left.
I'm going to ask you some questions about what you were wearing on that day.
All right.
How were you dressed that day?
That day I was more layered and casual. I wasn't planning on dressing up because I had errands to run.
Okay. Aside from underwear, what was the first layer on top against your skin? What was your first layer next to your
top
skin?
down? So on top. My first layer was a yellow tiger shirt I have.
Is that the t-shirt we saw on the screen before?
Yes.
And on top, what was the next layer that you had on?
Was my favorite button-up, which seems to have, it looks like dots, but they're little plants. It's a blue button-up.
I hate to ask you an embarrassing question, but were you wearing underwear under your clothes that day?
No.
Okay. So you had no underwear on, no? All right.
No.
And after the blue button-up shirt, was that common for you to not wear underwear under your clothing?
Yes, I had tights on, so that kind of what I thought counted it as underwear.
And a bra, is it common for you to not wear a bra?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, let's go back. I want to go back to the top garment. So I think we've talked about the t-shirt, the button-up.
Yes.
After the button-up, what was the next thing you had on over that?
The next thing I had on over that was my gold sweater.
Okay. And is that the gold sweater we've seen the pictures of? Sometimes
Yes.
looks gold, sometimes looks brown.
Yes, it looks brown, but it's gold.
Okay. And after the gold sweater, what did you have on top of that?
I have this very large It's a flannel. It's very large on me, so I kind of use it as a coat or an overcoat.
Okay. Anything else on your top half of your body?
Well, around my waist, I kind of had another sweater kind of tied loosely. It's like a long sweater.
Do you know what color that was?
It was kind of goldish.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the bottom half of your body.
Yes.
I think you mentioned tights.
Yes.
Were those the tights we've seen the pictures of?
Yes, my knit tights.
And on top of the tights, what did you have?
I had what's been called as mom jeans, but some light wash, high-waisted pants.
Okay.
Okay, is this a good spot?
Let me just
Right.
ask what she had on her feet, and then we can finish.
Get through all the layers and we're good.
Yeah.
for
Okay.
lunch. Okay.
Were you wearing shoes on that day?
Yes, I had my work boots on.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for, again, about 1 hour from when we leave the courtroom. So, all rise. Jury.
Touch or graze my skin. He just ripped through some holes that were already on my pants. And I threw them away after that.
Okay. Ezra, before we broke for lunch, I think we were at the point where the police had left and you and Alex are now leaving his house.
Yes.
All right. Whose car were you in?
My car.
Who was driving?
I was driving.
When you left Alex's car, did you go to drive Alex's car, excuse me, your car, Alex's
Yes.
house? Sorry, I'm talking too fast. Did you go to drive anywhere in particular?
No.
What was your intentions?
It was briefly discussed about maybe possibly going to a park or just somewhere in common to speak. We didn't settle on something.
As you were driving, were you paying much attention to where you were going?
No, just driving.
What was the subject of the conversation between you and Alex as you're leaving his house and starting to drive?
What we had started talking about is like feelings towards the relationship we had had, and he started to now speak about how he felt about my relationship with Jason and how he felt about our relationship ending.
What was Alice's mood or demeanor during this conversation?
Alex was very solemn and he seemed frustrated.
As he was talking and you were talking,
Yes.
what was happening to you and your feelings?
I started feeling anxious after our conversation being abruptly interrupted. And now we were driving and talking about me and Jason and things like that. I started to feel anxious, just uneasy.
What did you do as a result of that anxiety?
As a result of my anxiety, I asked him if it would be all right if he could drive for a while.
How did he respond?
He said, yes, yeah, I can drive. It's fine.
So what happened after he told you he could drive?
After we briefly parked, we switched drivers and he started to drive me.
Do you know where you were at that particular point?
No.
When he was driving at that point, did the conversation continue?
Yes.
Were you paying attention at all to where he was going?
No, I was trying to focus on what he was saying.
Did you know where he was going or direct him to a certain direction at all?
No, we were just driving.
What was the conversation about then?
The conversation was more led by him at this point, and he was voicing his opinion about my continuation of the relationship with Jason.
And as that conversation continued, was there at some point that Alex stopped the car?
Yes.
Do you know where that was?
It was just some road. We just stopped.
When he stopped the car, what happened?
When he stopped the car, we sat there for a moment, and a car passed us. Not much happened other than he started to pull into what seemed like a driveway.
And was this, okay, just to clarify, where he initially pulled the car over, was it on the muddy road or was it on a paved road?
It was on a paved road turning into the muddy road. It's the best way to describe it.
All right, but at that point, had he completely gone onto the muddy road yet?
No.
After he decided to start driving again,
Yes.
what did he do?
He started driving, he proceeded to drive up the muddy road, and that's when we started to get stuck.
First of all, you've seen the pictures with the gate at the muddy road. Was the
Yes.
gate open or closed?
It was open.
All right. So when you say he got stuck or started to get stuck, what do you mean?
As we started to drive up this muddy road, it's kind of at an incline. We got stuck in the mud the first time.
Was there conversation about why he was driving up the muddy road?
No, well, it was just kind of, this seems like a nice place to stop, I guess.
All right. Was there a plan to do something?
To get out, and we both love nature, so to get out, maybe look around a bit, explore, talk.
When he got the car stuck, what happened?
When he got the car stuck in the road, I said, I can take over. I think I can pull it out of the mud. So we then again switched drivers.
What happened when you decided you were going to try to, well, let me ask you first. Had you ever been to this place before?
No, I've never seen it before.
Did you know where you were?
No.
You get in the driver's seat. Were you able to move the car?
Yes.
Were you able to do that without the assistance of any objects?
Yes.
Okay. And once you were able to move the car, where was Alex sitting when you did that? Or where was Alex? I'm sorry. That's what I meant to ask.
Alex was in the passenger seat with me.
When you were able to move the car, what did you do?
I was able to move the car because I maneuvered it onto what seemed to be grass, so it wasn't muddy. It seemed like the frost hadn't given out yet. So I proceeded to drive up this hill of sorts, and then I got stuck in the mud.
You've seen the pictures of your car stuck in the mud.
Yes.
Did your car ever move again while you were there? Let me ask you now, you're stuck in the mud.
Yes.
What efforts do you make to get unstuck?
Well, I tried your typical backing up a little bit, moving forward, maybe turning the wheel this way, turning the wheel that way a little bit, but...
You mean you turn the wheel to right and to left?
Yes,
Okay.
to see if anything would help get this out of the mud, but it just... The tires at one point just started spinning. There was no use.
Did Alex get out and try to help push at all?
No.
And did you try to use any objects to get yourself unstuck?
I looked for some in my car, yes, after we stopped.
Okay, first of all, did you look for things in the inside of your car?
Yes.
What did you look for in the inside of your car?
I was hoping there would be a brick in my car, a board, anything I can use to wedge under maybe one of the tires to gain some traction.
Did you find anything you could do that with?
No.
Did you look in the trunk of your car?
Yes.
What did you look for in the trunk of your car?
I looked for the same thing, but there wasn't anything that I wanted to have to stick under my tire and see it break or get ruined.
Was there something specific in your trunk you didn't want to get ruined?
My tent.
And did at some point you take a blanket out?
Yes, I took a blanket out when I was looking in the back of my car, kind of in the back footwells, in the seat area. I set it on the ground near the open door. I wasn't too concerned that it was on the ground.
Okay. When you say the open door, which door are you referring to?
The driver's side back seat door.
Why was that door open?
The door was open so that I could look for anything.
And did you ever close that door?
No.
What about a pillow? Did you take a pillow out at all?
Yes, a pillow had come out when I took the blanket out.
So that just happened?
Yes, it just happened.
Okay. So you're in the mud. You're
Yes.
stuck.
Yes.
What is Alex doing to try to help you get unstuck?
At that point, he was very quiet. He wasn't doing really much. He kind of stepped back and he seemed like he was just letting me look and try to figure this out.
The things that were in your trunk, I know there's been some pictures shown that there's a couple of knives back in the trunk.
Yes.
Were you aware those were in there?
Not consciously, no.
Do you know how they got in the back of your trunk?
There's always various knives from moving place to place between my mom's and my dad's, and there was a lot of things in my trunk from moving out of my apartment. So somewhere between moves.
Was one of those knives something Jason had given you?
Yes.
And what condition was it in?
It was, one of the clasps was broken.
We also saw a picture of what looked like a steak knife or a kitchen knife.
Yes.
Did you know that was in there?
I didn't know that was in there, no.
Did you take those knives out at any time?
No.
Did you go into your Senate council to try and get anything to move the car?
No, I didn't really look in there.
At some point, did Alex get out of the car too?
Yes.
And at some point, did you move other items from around in your car in the back seat? Just as well, what I want to ask you about is the paintings Max gave you. Do you know if you moved those at all?
I did move the paintings. One of the paintings was upright, so I moved it to the front seat. I didn't want it to get ruined in me rummaging around. And the other painting had slipped under the seat.
So when you moved that painting, the larger
Yes.
painting, or maybe we could call the abstract painting?
Yes.
Where was Alex at that point?
Alex was outside of the car.
After not finding anything to move the car,
Yes.
what were you going to do next?
Breathe. I was like, how great. I don't know where I am. I have no idea. I'm stuck in the mud. I don't know what to do. I need to breathe.
I'm just going to show you this diagram that has been used previously. It's exhibit number 285. Thank you. And just to orient you,
Yes.
do you understand what is being shown?
I do.
Okay. So this diagram shows tire marks in two different places.
Yes.
All right. The diagram shows two pillows. Is that the pillow I was asking you about?
Yes, it's my pillow.
Okay. And although I'm sure it's marked on here, it's not. The diagram shows a blanket?
Yes.
All right. Now this is your car. Did you notice something next to your car by where you were stuck?
Yes, I noticed a large, what seemed to be military trailer.
At some point, did you go over by that trailer?
Yes.
Why?
It was a bit tall for me to look inside, but I kind of peeked at it to see if there might have been something. I stopped focusing on it and I decided to go sit just kind of on the hitch of the trailer.
Okay. Do you see this pointed object near where it says trailer?
Yes.
Is that a visual, though not accurate, representation of the hitch?
Yes.
So when you went over to the hitch, what did you do?
I went over to the hitch of the trailer and I decided to sit on it, and I was just trying to breathe through the anxiety and the feelings of being stuck, not knowing where I am, and I was just kind of looking out into the woods, sitting on this hitch of sorts.
During the time that you're sitting and looking out into the woods, was Alex talking with you at all?
He was behind me, but he was at my car at that point.
Was he in your line of vision, or how? Let me just ask this: how did you know he was at your car?
I could hear him open and close the door.
Was he talking to you at all?
No.
During this time, were you facing towards Alex or away from Alex?
I was facing away from Alex towards the woods.
Did there come a time where, as you were facing away from Alex towards the woods, that he approached you at all?
Yes, he had approached me from behind.
Well, since he's from behind, how do you know he's there?
I could feel him. I could feel that he was there. I could hear him approach. I could feel just that somebody was behind me.
When he approached, what happened?
As I was sitting there, he approached me from behind, and he wrapped his arms around me. It was kind of a hug. He held me there for a little while.
Did you say anything?
I kind of tensed. I didn't really reciprocate the hug. And it was kind of a silent moment between us, but I felt awkward and uneasy, and it wasn't a time for me to feel like I wanted a hug, I guess.
And let me ask you something else. Do you know whether or not Alex had a phone with him?
Yes.
Did you have a working phone with you?
No.
You had your iPod, I gather.
Yes.
And the phone without the minutes?
Yes.
All right. Did you ask Alex at any point to make a phone call on his phone to try and get
No.
a tow truck?
No.
Did
I did
you
not.
offer to make any calls or try to get a tow truck?
It was a very brief kind of quick conversation about, should we call somebody for this? And I was like, I can handle it, I think. So no, we did not make a phone call.
All right, you could handle it, but you hadn't been able to move the car. What are you thinking when you're saying I can handle this?
What I'm thinking is, I don't want to get my car towed because of how expensive it is. I didn't want to have to pay for that.
Okay. So let's go back to him coming over. He gives you a hug.
Yes.
What happens after he gives you the hug?
After he gives me the hug, and I tense. I think he felt that because he let go after he held me for a while. And I think he could see that I was breathing. I was trying to breathe through some anxiety, and he suggested that maybe I should go lay down or look around in the car again.
Okay, when you say you were breathing, can you describe what you mean to all of us?
What I mean is I'm sitting there, and I'm just a lot is running through my mind, and I was breathing heavily. My anxiety was heightened at that time. I was trying to breathe through it, so I was trying to deeply breathe. It wasn't working too well.
Is deep breathing something you've used to try to control anxiety?
Yes.
Did Alex say anything else to you after he had eventually come over?
He suggested that I might want to lay down for a while and maybe just relax.
What did you think when Alex said that?
I just shrugged and was like, all right, maybe, and I decided to walk back towards the car.
When you walked back to the car, did you go in the car?
I went into the car, yes.
Where in the car did you return?
I returned to the car. I returned to the driver's side. Back door was open, and I approached into the car. I kind of looked around a little bit, moved some things a little more, and that's how I was getting into the car, was from the back.
Why were you going to the back seat and not the front seat?
I was thinking, maybe he's right, I need to lay down for a little bit.
Did you lie down?
I did.
At some point after lying down, did Alex join you?
Yes, he did join me.
How were you laying down when he came over?
When he came over, when he first came over, I was still in a somewhat crouched position. So I felt him, I heard him approach, and I laid down. I got into the car further, and I laid down on my back.
When you laid on the back, what happened with Alex?
When I laid down, Alex had started to come into the car with me and position himself above me. You could say, straddled.
Was Alex speaking to you at that point?
Yes, he started to speak to me at this point, yes.
Can you tell us the words you heard Alex speak to you?
What he said to me at this time was, he started to describe me, and not in a third person sense. And he also started to speak of how he deserves this.
Well, let's just stop, because I don't know what you mean by he describes you in a third person sense. Can you tell us specifically what you remember him saying?
Specifically, what I remember him saying is, Ezra is beautiful. Ezra is my shining sun. Ezra, in the sense he kept saying my name and then something after that. Ezra is so handsome.
All right, so Ezra is beautiful. Ezra is my shining sun. Ezra is handsome. Had he ever talked to you that way before?
He hadn't talked to me. He's said pet names before. sweet talked me before, but this was different because it was disconnected. It was third person.
So in other words, are you, like before he would say, you are this, you are that?
He would say, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're this, you're that. But at this point, at this time, he was saying Ezra is, instead of, it was more as if I was an object.
After he's saying Ezra's beautiful,
Objection to
Ezra's,
that last comment, it calls for speculation.
that's how she felt. I believe that's perfectly admissible.
Are you objecting to the previous question before
Yes,
the
Your
answer?
Honor. Previous answer before counsel started again.
I'm going to overrule it. Go ahead.
All right. So you're feeling that he's referring to as an object. What else are you feeling at that point?
At that point, I'm not so sure how to really think about what was happening. I was a little confused because he hadn't come on to me earlier that day. I didn't think he was going to do this. I was starting to feel my anxiety come back full force.
Did he do anything with respect to your glasses?
Yes, he started to do things slowly and methodically. He first removed my glasses.
When your glasses are off, can you see?
No, not at all. Barely past a couple inches in front of my face.
So when he removed your glasses, what were you able to see?
I was able to see that he was in front of me. I can't see much.
I think you were saying that in addition to his referring to you in the third person, he was also saying something else. Can you tell me what else you heard?
That I was handsome and that he deserved this. I had betrayed him. I went back to Jason. He was upset about this and that he deserved me.
After Alex says he deserved you and takes off your glasses, what does he do?
He then takes my scarf and he places it over my eyes. And I felt his hand on my face and he asked me if I could see him. And I told him, no, I cannot.
So he puts this, you tell him you can't see him. What does he do next?
After he asks me a few times if I can see him, and I tell him, no, I can't see you, Alex. I can't see him, but I can feel him start to touch my clothes.
What's going through your head?
What's going through my head at this time is I don't know what I was assuming what I thought I knew what he wanted, and I wasn't sure, and I was anxious, and what was going on was going through my head.
Were you going to tell him to stop?
I hadn't really voiced much until after he had kissed me.
Then, after kissing you, but about the other things he was doing, touching your clothes, caressing you, or whatever he did. I'm not sure what he did, but...
No, I just was quiet and I was still.
Okay, I want to get back to his actions as you were quiet.
Yes.
What is he doing besides kissing you? What does he do?
After he kisses me and I pull my head back a bit, I felt he touched the hem of my sweater. I could feel a pull on it. And I wasn't sure at the time really what he was doing, but I could feel it start to give away. It felt looser, and my sweater had been opened.
Did you know how he had opened your sweater?
After I felt my sweater start to give away, I took off the scarf and I could see that he was cutting my sweater.
All right. When he kissed you, did you tell him to stop?
Yes.
Why say stop about the kissing?
He didn't ask me if he could kiss me. I couldn't see he was going to do it. It was so sudden and it caught me off guard and it was strange.
It caught you off guard. You asked him to stop. Did he stop kissing you or continue?
He tried to kiss me again, but I tried to pull away with my limited room where I was.
So now he's cut your sweater open. Do you tell him stop then?
No, I froze.
What does he do after he cuts your sweater?
After he cuts through my sweater, he then starts to cut through my second shirt.
Do you move then?
No,
Why not?
I'm just trying to breathe. I'm frozen. I don't know what to do.
When you say frozen, what do you mean?
What I mean when I'm frozen is that I'm still. I'm limp. I'm not moving or resisting or fighting. I'm there.
Why?
I didn't know what to do.
After he cuts through your shirt, what's the very next thing you feel?
The next thing I feel is that my second shirt starts to get cut, and I can feel that he's cutting it, but I also feel a slight prick or something. And after that, he moves to my pants.
Were you able to see what he was cutting with?
Yes,
What was it?
it was a knife.
Now, about that knife, had you taken that knife out during the time that you were stuck?
No,
When you came back to the car before you got in the back seat, had you noticed that something was different?
I noticed something was different. I looked into the front of my car, and I noted how it was strange that my wallet was out of the console and that my middle console was open. I thought it was strange.
Let me take you back to the cutting. So
Yes.
He's cut through your sweater, he's cut through your shirt, he's cut a little bit into your t-shirt, you have felt something on your
Yes.
stomach, I believe. And after that, what does he do next?
After that, he starts to cut through my pants. He's starting near the button, well, below that. It's on the front of my pants, or the inner thigh, you can say. I can feel that he's pulled on it to give room so that he can cut through.
Was there, besides your pants, was he cutting through anything else at this point?
At this point, he had cut through my tights as well.
Where on your pants and your tights had he cut through at this point?
At this point, he had cut through the inner thigh area of my pants and tights.
After he's cutting through your pants and your tights, what happens next? Do you feel anything different at some point?
What was different at this point is that I could feel the knife start to graze and cut into my skin.
Where in your skin do you feel it?
I feel it on my vagina. I feel it. It's inside the hip region. I could just feel a pinch, and I could feel that the knife had been meeting contact with me.
Are you moving?
At this point, I was still frozen.
After he feels you feel him cut you in the vaginal area and in the inner thigh, what does he do next?
After I felt that, at this point, I had started to shift, and I brought my leg up.
Okay, I'm going to do before you brought your leg up, though.
Yes.
All right? What I want to ask you, as you're there, as you're frozen, as you're thinking,
Yes.
what is going through your mind?
Before I even moved, what was going through my mind is he's going to do what he wants. He's going to take anything he wants. He's going to use me. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified. I couldn't move.
Had Alex ever cut you with a knife before?
No.
What is different about this as you're laying there and he's cutting you with this knife?
What's so different about this is that in the past, only clothes had been cut, but this is the first time he ever cut me with the knife.
What are you afraid of now?
I'm afraid he's going to kill me.
As you're afraid he's going to kill you, at some point, why are you afraid he's going to kill you? Let me just first ask that.
I'm afraid he's going to kill me because he has a knife, and I'm afraid that he's going to take whatever he wants and he's just going to finish this.
All of the things you've read about Alex, and I'm not going to go through his books and his philosophies again, were the things that he had talked about with you, the names he had called you, the discussions about sacrifice, consent.
Yes.
Is your mind swirling? Or what are you thinking?
My mind is running through his words that he deserves this. My mind is running through all of the possibilities of what he could want, of what he's going to take. I was wondering if he was going to kill me and then he was going to kill himself so that he didn't have to be alone.
All right, you're wondering this. At some point, do you manage to work yourself out of your frozen state?
Yes.
Tell us when that happens.
When this happens, I bring my leg up to position it more between Alex's legs.
When you say you bring your leg up, do you know which leg you're talking about?
Yes.
All right, and at this point, do you feel anything?
Yes, I feel him run the knife down a few times, the pants open, and then I feel that he punctures my leg.
At the point where he's running the knife and cutting you and punctures you, are you, besides the fact that you've brought your leg up, are you moving your leg at any point yet?
No, I was just closing off the area of my vagina.
I know that we're talking about this slowly, but in terms of the time it's taking as he's doing this, what, fast, slow?
It was very slow at first. It was slow. It was very slow. And then as I brought my leg up is when it started to happen faster. Things were starting to happen now.
After you feel the puncture in your leg,
Yes.
and he's cut these, into your leg,
Yes.
what do you do to try to move?
What I'm doing to try to move is I have my right hand gripping the side of the seat. I was just thinking maybe if I can pull myself away, maybe if I can do something, I can get out, I can get away from this. I need to move. I need to start to move. I was screaming at myself internally, you need to move.
Are you saying anything?
No.
Did you try somehow to reach for anything with your other hand, your left hand?
Yes, when my leg was pulled up, my leg is pulled up and I'm closing off the area of my vagina. I take my hand, my free hand, my left hand, and I grab for and bat at the knife that is puncturing my leg.
What do you feel when that happens?
I feel like a pinch or a prick on my hand every time I go to block it.
So when you feel that cutting into your hand, what do you do with your hand?
I pull my hand away.
Do you do something else then to try to resist him?
Yes, my hand,
Go ahead,
as
I was
my
just
leg
asking, yeah.
is between his knees at that point, gripping the seat, I decided then to knee him in the groin.
What happens when, well, you decided to knee him in the groin. Did you actually do it?
Yes.
What happens then?
He reacts and he drops the knife at that point.
When he drops the knife, what do you do?
Instantly, I grab the knife and I've used my arm to pull myself into the footwell. And that's when everything really starts to happen.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about everything starting to happen. You have the knife.
Yes.
What are you doing with the knife?
At this point, I have the knife. I'm trying to get out of the car. I need to get out. I need to get away is all I'm saying. And I can't get out of the car and he's still grabbing for me. And this is when I began to defend myself and stab Alex.
Now, you're saying you want to get out of the car. You're no longer lying down on the seat with your head by the passenger side door. Where in the car are you at this point as you're trying to get out and you're holding this knife?
At this point, when the knife is in my hand, I am trapped between the open door and the middle of the car, so where the console would be, or the seat.
You said you grabbed the knife and you start stabbing.
Yes.
Where's your back at that point, or which direction are you facing it?
I'm facing, what would be forward at this point is the rear of the car. I'm facing Alex, but my back is pressed against the driver.
Where is Alex?
Alex is in front of me. He's in between, he's not directly in front of me, but he's in between me and the door.
Are you trying to get out?
Yes.
You said you're unable to get out, so what do you start doing?
What I start doing is defending myself. As Alex is grabbing me, I started stabbing him anywhere and everywhere I could. I didn't know what was happening. I just needed to get away. I just needed to get out of the car.
Were you consciously aiming for any particular place when you were stabbing him?
No, it was happening fast, and it was anywhere and everywhere.
Do you have any memory of the order in which you stabbed him at all?
No.
Do you have any memory in particular of him attacking you as you're stabbing?
Yes, as I'm trying to get out of this car, as I'm trying to make my way to the open door, Alex grabs me by the throat, and I'm pressed, my body and my head is pressed against the driver's side back of the seat.
And is this happening before you stabbed him, as you're starting? Do you remember?
It's happening as I was stabbing him.
Okay. So he's grabbing you by the throat. You saw a red mark from these pictures on your throat?
Yes.
Is that where he was grabbing you?
Yes.
And besides grabbing you in the throat, what else is he doing to you? Do you know?
His hand slips from my throat and it moves to the back of my head where he grabs my hair.
What happens when he grabs your hair? Do you remember?
I remember as he grabbed my hair, he was holding it very tight and he was pulling my face towards him. And I remember that's when I see everything. And I'm sorry, this is the point when I decided I needed to go. I needed to get out of there. I was panicking. I couldn't breathe.
Did you see a phone?
Yes.
Whose phone?
I seen Alex's phone.
Did you take it?
Yes.
Why?
In my head, I wanted to call the police. I wanted to get help. I wanted to do anything I could do.
All right, at that point you're thinking that as you leave the car, do you still have the knife?
Yes.
What do you do with that knife?
What I did with that knife is I looked down and I opened my sleeve with the tip of it and I hastily scratched the word boy into my arm.
Okay, everyone wants to know, why did you scratch boy into your arm?
I've thought about it, and when I think about this, I don't know. At that time, it's something that just happened. It was just a reaction. I don't know why I did this.
Had you ever cut yourself before?
Yes.
When had you cut yourself before?
In the past, when I had cut myself on my arm was at times when I felt like I couldn't breathe, when I felt numb, when I felt like I needed to act because I couldn't feel anything. It woke me up in a sense.
Did you feel that way at this time?
Yes.
Objection. Relevance. I know 402 or 404, I mean.
I think I'm asking about her feelings right afterwards. We're right in this incident. I'm asking her what she's feeling.
Well, I'm going to overrule. Go ahead, continue.
Thank you. All right. You've already said how you feel. After you cut boy in your arm, do you know where you were when you did that?
At that point is when I was staying away from Alex because of the fear. I was at the end of the car and I had my hand placed on the back of the car.
After you cut boy in your arm, what do? Well, first of all, is your second shoe on at this point?
No.
When you leave, where is Alex?
Alex is still laying on his coat.
Do you know, or had you noticed whether or not he had his shoes on at that point or not?
He still had his shoes on at that point.
And when you say he's laying on his coat, where is he laying on his coat?
He's laying on his coat near the green trailer.
You've cut boy in your arm.
Yes.
You told Detective Prock that you wouldn't forget. You did to not forget. Today you're saying you're searching your mind and you just don't know.
There's so many things I could think that it could be, but I search my mind, and when I think about this, I really just don't know the answer.
Where do you go after you have cut boy in your arm?
After I cut boy in my arm, I started to make my way down that dirt driveway.
You told Detective Prock that you could not get this outside of your head. What did you mean by that?
I couldn't get the feeling outside of my head. I couldn't get the panic, the visual of the horror of seeing Alex and seeing the blood. Some of the things that you've said in court, but what I meant to ask you before that was the way you've related this is a little bit different than some of what you related to Detective Prock when you told him what happened. Yes.
A couple of days later. And do you have an explanation or know why you remember this a little differently now?
I've had time to process it. I've had time to process it. At the moment, while speaking to Proc, it was fresh, all of the feelings. I was feeling the emotions and sights, and now I've had a significant amount of time to process what has happened to me.
When you told him then that you couldn't get it out of your head, was it like replaying it in order? Was
No.
it fragments? Was it here and there? Was it,
It was fragments. It was even smells. It was just a mix of parts of what had happened.
Okay. I'm going to have to take you back now to going to the farmer's house.
Yes.
Mr. Sipples, okay?
Yes.
What do you remember about going there?
I remember a farmer. He took me into his house, sat me down, and got me a blanket.
Before you got to his house, where were you going? I mean, do you remember how you got there at all?
I just remember stumbling down a road, falling on a paved road a few times, just feeling like I could barely get my feet to move. And I noticed some cars in a driveway, and I thought, someone's home. I have to see if someone's home.
Do you know at all when you fell, what happened to the... Well, first of all, you were carrying the knife and the phone. I think
Yes.
you said that. When you fell, did something happen to those?
When I fell the first time, I had hit my hand very hard, and the phone, I dropped the phone, and I broke the phone.
And what about the knife?
The knife I just dropped.
Were you trying to hide them?
No.
I think you were talking about what Mr. Sipple did when you got there.
Yes.
When you got there, was there some point where somebody asked you your name?
Yes.
Do you remember at all what you said when you were there?
No.
Do you know whether when you were there, what your state of mind was?
I was just panicked.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about your name, Monica Carlin.
Yes.
You've heard the testimony that you gave your name as Monica Carlin.
Yes, I've heard that.
And I think as you're saying now, you don't remember doing that.
No.
Was there an earlier time in your life when you had a traumatic car accident?
Yes.
What happened then?
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Yes.
I did.
When you had the second car accident, what did you do that time?
That time, I had blacked out and opened my eyes, and I was in the ditch on the side of the highway. I'd gone through a fence.
After you were on the ditch on the side of the highway, did you go to the hospital again?
Yes.
Who visited you there?
My mother and my boyfriend at the time, Jason.
And when you were in the hospital, what were you talking about at the hospital the second time?
The second time at the hospital, when I woke up, I was asking, where's the horse? Is the horse okay? Is everybody okay?
Was there a horse in the second accident?
No, I was right back into the first accident I had had.
And what name did you give after that?
I gave my name Monica.
Do you know this because you remember it, or were the people who with you told you you had done this?
The people that were with me had told me that this was happening.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this as being hearsay,
All right, so staying on hearsay.
and
No.
ask that
And
that be
last
stricken.
answer would be stricken.
Okay. Now, after I'm going to go back to this. So when you're at the farmer's house,
Yes.
are you aware of just happened to you? What had just happened to you at that point?
At that point, I wasn't aware of much other than being panicked and terrified and hurt.
You said you were attacked by them. Is them a word you would use referring to a singular person?
Yes.
And why do you sometimes call a singular person them or they?
I've been known to do this many times. It's a pronoun that I've been used to using. It's neutral.
You said you were attacked, but without giving details when you were there. Why was that?
I said I was attacked because of the feeling of fear of having to get away from this individual, of feeling like someone was coming, or that I was hurt by someone and that something had happened. I looked down at my clothes and I could see they were open, and I was terrified.
The police came. Did you talk to the police?
Yes.
Do you have any memory of those conversations?
No.
Do you know how you got to the hospital?
By ambulance.
Do you have any memory of that ambulance ride?
No.
What about getting to the hospital? Do you remember what happened once you got to the hospital?
I remember bits and pieces of what had happened when I got to the hospital because they had started to take my clothes.
Do you remember doctors, nurses, anything else?
It's all, I barely remember faces. It's a blur of movement and people checking in and people being with me constantly and talking to me and asking me questions and prodding and poking at me.
Do you remember any of your statements to the police that day? That day, the first night at the hospital?
No.
Was there a point in the hospital where your memory began to return to you?
Yes.
When was that?
The point when things started to flood back to me was when I finally was able to take a shower that night. And I went to get some soap or shampoo from the wall, and when I pumped it onto my hand, I felt how much it stung. And I looked down and I could see my hand was cut, and I could feel everything start to come back.
Was that... All right, let's start there. The next day, Detective Prock came to see you.
Yes.
Do you remember talking to him?
I do remember speaking with him, yes.
Do you remember you speaking with him twice, or is it a blur, or how do you recall that?
My talks with Proc, when I remember them, it feels like it's just one interview. It doesn't feel distinctly two different interviews for me.
All right. Whether you remember it as one or two, Detective Prock came to see you the next day, and he was asking you where Alex was.
Yes.
And the next day, when he's asking you where Alex was, did you tell him about what had happened?
I did not tell him, no.
Why not?
I was overwhelmed and I was terrified. I didn't know what to do.
When you don't tell him, was there any thought in your head that had you told him some help could be gotten for Alex, or what did you think had happened to Alex at that point?
At that point, I thought Alex was dead.
Was that also something you thought as you cut Boy into your arm and ran away from the car?
Yes.
Why did you tell Detective Prock that Alex put Boy in your arm?
Why I told him this was that I was afraid that because I did this to wake myself up, that he wouldn't believe that anything else that had happened to me was true.
But at this point, you're not telling him the other things that have happened to you.
No.
And you're making a decision not to.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because of how terrified I am of what had happened.
The next day, and again, I realize these seem like one incident to you, but Detective Prock comes back with another investigator.
Yes.
Mr. Conkey. And he's asking you questions and you don't tell him then right away either.
No.
Do you know why?
Because of how terrified I was. I wasn't ready to tell anybody. I didn't know how to process this. I didn't know how to handle this.
At some point in that conversation, he told you that they had found your car. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And when he told you that, did you start talking about what happened?
Yes, it started to come out then.
And eventually in that conversation, not right away, did you tell him that you had put the word boy in your arm?
Yes.
And again, were you hesitant to tell him that?
Yes.
I mean, even after you told him all of these things and what happened, were you hesitant?
I was.
And why was that?
Because after I told him, I still had that thought in my mind that he would assume that because I had done this, anything else that happened to me was my fault.
Ezra, the night before this happened, did you have a talk with your father?
Yes.
What was that talk?
I'm sorry. That talk with my father was about life starts now.
And when you had that talk, did you plan to start life by killing Alex?
No.
Did you come to Eau Claire to kill him?
No.
What were you hoping to do when you saw Alex?
I was hoping we could be friends still, even after everything that happened between us.
I have no further questions at this time.
All right. So I don't see how it's prejudicial to have the date, and it certainly has relevance.
Well, the defense objection is duly noted, preserved for the record. However, the court is going to allow state to use it with the date on it. And, okay, so let's bring the jury in.
All right. Ms. McCandless, you had gotten a new driver's license in around June of 2017. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And on that driver's license, you listed your height as being 5'6".
I did.
And you put on there that your weight was about 130 pounds, correct?
Yes.
And you were weighed when you got into the hospital, correct?
I don't remember. No.
Thank you.
Later, but I don't think the word objection was actually made, but I'll note it as an objection on a sidebar. Objection
So I'm
overruled.
showing you what has been marked for identification as Exhibit 699. This is your Instagram homepage, correct?
Yes.
All right, and it contains on it a phrase that says, "I am the fox, a tricky one," correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move the admission of Exhibit 699 as published to the jury.
All right, and subject to the objection, Exhibit 699 will be received. It is 699, is it?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now, so we are clear, you met Jason Mengel during the summer of 2017, correct?
Yes.
And very shortly after that, you became seriously romantically involved with Mr. Mengel, correct?
Yes, we were boyfriend and girlfriend.
I'm sorry?
Yes, we became boyfriend and girlfriend.
And in fact, shortly after that, you moved in with Jason Mengel, correct?
Yes, that had happened.
And you had met Alex Woodworth around that same time period?
Yes.
And in the future, I'm just going to refer to him as Alex. I know there are two Alexes here, unless I specifically say Alex Zink. Whenever I'm talking about Alex, I'll be talking about Alex Woodworth, okay?
Okay.
You became friends with Alex, right?
Yes.
Would talk with him frequently?
Yes.
Right. Would go for walks with Alex?
Yes.
And around that same time period, you also met John Hanson, correct?
Yes. Through
And
Jason.
became friends with John Hanson as well, correct?
Yes.
Now, you moved in with Jason, what, sometime during August of 2017?
Roughly end of summer, yes.
And when you moved in with Jason, the expectation was that you were going to be paying part of the rent, correct?
It was mentioned a few times. It wasn't really an expectation, just kind of like a get me back when you can.
And for a time, you were paying part of the rent, correct?
Can you please restate that? I didn't hear you clearly.
Sure. For a time, you were paying part of the rent, correct?
No, I was helping with groceries.
All right. So you never paid any of the rent?
No.
You worked for a short time at Joann Fabrics,
Yes, seasonal.
and after you lost that job or after you were no longer working there, you weren't paying anything anymore, correct?
Hey, do you... I didn't lose the job.
I'll rephrase. After you were no longer working at Joann Fabric, you were not paying anything towards your support at Jason Mengel's apartment, correct?
I was doing side jobs with my dad and things like that, so I would chip in with
Ma'am,
groceries.
question is,
Okay.
were you paying something or not? Period.
She was answering the question. Could she be permitted to please finish her answer?
No, she's not, and I'll ask that whatever she said be stricken because it was unresponsive to my question.
Okay, well, I'm going to sustain the, well, I'm not sure what I'm sustaining here. You may continue, Mr. Dufour, and I'm not going to allow her to elaborate. It's not responsive to the questioner's question.
My question is, after you were no longer working at Joann Fabrics, you weren't paying anything towards your stay at Jason Mengel's apartment, correct?
I was still helping with groceries and odd things.
Sometime in late September or early October, you found out you were pregnant,
Yes.
and you asked Jason to pay for that abortion, correct?
I didn't ask him. We both kind of agreed on it.
You never asked Jason if he was okay with your getting an abortion, did you?
It was a time when we didn't have much conversation.
So you never asked Jason if he was okay with you having the abortion, did you?
I did ask him, yes.
And you, by the way, when you went to the appointment where you confirmed you were pregnant,
Yes.
you asked immediately for information on an abortion?
No.
You asked at that same visit for information on an abortion, didn't you?
Yes.
And after you had the abortion, you began to get closer with Alex, correct?
That is correct.
And began to have a sexual relationship with Alex, correct?
Yes.
And while you started that sexual relationship with Alex, you were still living in Jason's apartment, correct?
Yes.
Still occasionally having sexual contact with Jason?
No.
There was absolutely no sexual contact between you and Jason between the time you started seeing Alex and the time that you stopped having sex with Alex?
The sexual contact wasn't intimate. Do you want me to elaborate on what I mean?
No, I'm not asking you to elaborate. I'm asking you, are you telling me that you had no sexual contact between...
I'm going to.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to ask you to the sixth text down is a text that came from Alex Woodworth that talks about flaws, correct?
Yes.
And you texted him back that flaws can be pretty interesting but hard to show, correct?
I think I might be mistaken on my page. Yes.
That was on October 29th of 2017, correct?
Yes.
I moved the admission of exhibit 700 at this point.
All right, any objection?
Judge,
And need your microphone.
Yes, I'm sorry. Judge, I don't object to the admission of what's been testified to. I don't,
Okay, so if there's more, we'll address those one at a time, but Exhibit
Yes.
700 will be received as the text messages.
Can I approach again, Your Honor?
You may?
okay, wait, I'm sorry. Are you on a different exhibit?
Yes, this is exhibit 701. It's the one I just gave you.
Are we moved on from this?
I'm done with that one for
Okay.
now. Thank you.
Yes.
Showing you what has been marked for identification as exhibit 701. That is an additional exhibit that contains additional text messages between yourself and Alex Woodworth, correct?
Yes.
Actually, I'll read you that.
Thank you.
Specifically, you turn to the third page of that exhibit.
Yes.
All right. Referring on the third page, do you see a text that starts, "People would be jealous"?
Yes.
All right. And that text, in fact, is one from Alex to you, correct?
Yes.
All right. And on that one, it states, "People would be jealous, but wouldn't even know how much better your booty looks without any clothes," correct?
Yes.
Your response to that is, "OMG, I'm blushing," correct? I'm
Yes.
blushing, correct? And OMG is short for "Oh my God."
Yes.
All right. And then you further respond, quote, "Nobody knows." I do, let's be honest, correct?
Yes.
And the date on those text exchanges was January 25th of 2018, correct?
Correct.
Right. Your Honor, I'd move, again, for purposes of the texts that have been discussed at this point, I'd move the admission of Exhibit 701.
All right, Ms. Bishny?
I don't object to the.
One will be received.
Okay, have 701 then?
Yes. Welcome.
And again, that second set of messages that we talked about in Exhibit 701 were also deleted from your iPod, correct?
Yes, I had deleted the app, so in return that deleted everything, yes.
Now, you testified on direct that you did not like it when Alex had you in the prone position. Do you recall that?
Yes.
May I approach?
You may.
Sure, copy counsel. The canvas I'm showing you has been marked for identification as exhibit number 702. That is a photo of yourself that you texted to John Hanson, correct?
Yes.
All right. And on the second page of this is a text where you state, I want to do something similar, but I'd like you to tie me up for it, correct?
Yes.
And that's referring back to the photo that's on the first page of that exhibit, correct?
Yes, for my photo shoot.
When I moved the admission of exhibit 702, I asked to publish it to the jury. I have copies for the jury.
All right, Exhibit 702 will be received, again, subject to the previous ruling, and objection preserved, can be published to the jury, but not published on the media.
Thank you, Judge. I'm also going to ask that that exhibit be sealed after the jury sees it.
We'll take that up at a later time.
Thank you.
I don't know that I can.
Is there 2 pages?
There are 2 pages, yes. Ma'am, you also testified, I believe, on direct about something you called wax play. Do you recall that?
Yes.
All right. You never mentioned to Detective Prock when you talked to him that there was wax play or anything to do with candles, did you?
What interview are you speaking of?
Well, let's start with the interview on March 22nd or 23rd of 2018. You never mentioned in that interview to Detective Prock anything about wax play, did you?
No.
And in the interview on March 24th, the second interview you had with Detective Prock, you never told him anything about wax play in that interview, did you?
No.
And you also testified on direct that on one occasion that you could recall, Alex had cut your pants with a knife. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You never mentioned that to Detective Prock in your interview with him, did you?
No.
In fact, in your interview on March 24th, exhibit 290, please. That's the transcript of the interview. Which is the March 24th interview. Thank you. You recall that interview, correct? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to object to that being a misstatement of the testimony. She says she recalls the interviews, but they seem like they were jumbled together.
I'm going to point her out to a specific page and
Oh, that's fine.
of the interview, counsel.
Sure.
You recall that interview, correct?
Bits and pieces, yes.
All right. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Counsel, can you please, before you go.
Page 36, lines 16, 36 to 37.
I'm sorry, lines, excuse me.
16, 36 to 37. In that interview, you were being asked about possibly being sexually assaulted, and on page 1636, isn't it true that you said, but I think I might have because of where the cuts are and stuff, because I don't know why somebody would cut my pants or anything, correct?
Yes.
That was your answer, correct?
Yes.
But you never told Detective Prock that the defendant had previously cut your clothes while you were that Alex had previously cut your clothes while you were with him, correct?
Correct.
You never told Detective Prock that Alex had actually strangled you previously, did you?
No.
In fact, all you said was that he put his arm by your neck at one point in time and that made you uncomfortable, correct?
Yes.
The relationship with Alex that you had continued until February 24th of 2018?
Around then, yes.
All right. And that's the date you sent a text to Alex and told him that you were no longer wanting to be involved with him, correct?
Yes.
All right. You told him that he never knew you, correct?
I don't exactly remember the text, no.
You told him that he should forget you, correct?
I could have said that, yes.
And you told him that you never knew him, correct?
Yet again, I could have said that, yes. I don't exactly remember the text message.
Okay. And you knew that those messages would be very hurtful to Alex, didn't you?
Yes.
And after the text of February 24th of 2018, Alex never initiated another contact with you, did he?
We passed each other at the coffee shop, but it was very brief interactions and we had stopped texting.
He never initiated a contact with you, did he?
No.
And sometime in February, you began this flirtation with John Hansen? Or was it earlier than that?
Yes.
It was earlier than
No, it was in that time range.
Okay. And you eventually had 2 sexual encounters with Mr. Hansen?
Yes, I had.
Okay. And one was in John Hansen's apartment, correct?
Yes.
And the second one was in the apartment that you shared with Jason Bengal, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, that one was on Jason's bed, correct?
Yes, that was on our bed.
Right. And hanging above that bed was the picture that you gave to Max Martinson on March 22nd of 2018, correct?
Yes.
Right. So you did not paint that picture for Max Martinson, correct?
No, not specifically.
And Exhibit 176, please. Thank you. And approach, Your Honor.
You may.
Page 4.
Is that an admitted exhibit? Is that already in?
What's that?
Mr. DeFore.
Okay.
I don't have the exhibits memorized. I must say.
It's the interview of March 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
All right. On page 4 of here, you said to Detective Prock on March 23rd, so I went and made sure all the stuff was in the trunk and the painting because I painted something for Max, a friend, correct?
Yes, I had said that.
The painting you were referring to is in fact the one that had been above the bed in the apartment you shared with Jason Mengel, correct?
Yes.
Because that's the painting you gave to Max Martinson on March 22nd, 2018, correct?
Correct.
A painting that reminded you of the sexual encounter you had with John Hanson, correct?
It didn't remind me of it, but it was there when it did happen.
And it reminded Jason of that sexual encounter, correct?
It reminded him, yes.
Okay. So it's something that was standing in the way of your continued relationship with Jason, correct?
No, I still loved my painting.
During the period from October of 2017 to the time that you moved out in early February of 2018, Jason Mengel was still paying all the rent for that apartment, or at least his portion of the rent for that apartment.
Yes.
Right. In fact, he was paying 2/3 of the rent, and Alex Zink was paying 1/3, correct?
I don't know exactly what their deal was.
Jason was paying for the vast majority of the food that you would consume in the apartment.
No.
He was paying for the utilities for the apartment.
That was split between them, yes.
And this allowed you weren't working at that from the time you left Joanne Fabrics, except for an odd job here and there.
Yes.
Right. It allowed you to work on your art.
Yes.
It allowed you to spend a lot of time at races with friends.
Yes.
And then you moved out in early February of 2018, correct?
Correct.
Right. And you sent a text message to Jason Mengel to basically break up with him, correct?
Correct.
You stayed some of the time with Alex Woodworth.
I didn't stay at his house, like live in, no.
Right. You didn't stay any times overnight at his house?
And before that, yes, I stayed overnight at his
Okay.
house. I wasn't living there though, no.
So you didn't stay overnight at Alex's after you broke up with Jason Mengel. Is that what your testimony is?
Maybe a night, but yes.
So you did stay over?
Yes, I had it confused as if you were saying if I had been living there.
And then you moved back to Stanley, Wisconsin?
Yes.
And you were first staying with your mother?
Yes.
And then you got into this fight, correct?
Yes, we had an argument, yes.
And your mom kicked you out of the house, correct?
Yes, she kind of gave me an ultimatum, either leave Jason or you have to get out, so.
She kicked you out of the house, correct?
I guess you could say that.
And then you moved in with your dad.
Yes.
At that point in time, though, it's fair to say you would prefer to be in the Eau Claire area, correct?
Yes.
Wanted to still be with Jason at that point in time, correct?
Yes, I was exploring the idea of continuing our relationship.
You wanted to still be with Jason, correct?
Yes.
And spent a night or two with Jason in a hotel room, correct?
Correct.
Despite all the things that had happened, you still love Jason, correct?
Are you saying now?
No, at that time, in
Yes.
February and March of 2018.
Of course, of course.
And you referred to it, I believe, in your journal, Silence Broken, as being an ancient love, correct?
Correct.
And you were continuing to try to repair that relationship, correct?
Yes, we were working on things.
I have exhibit 420, that's that binder with which was identified as a communication timeline, and you were present when Ms. Wright testified how this was created. Do you recall that?
Yes.
All right, and this is essentially listing of all your Instagram messages between yourself and various individuals during the relevant time frame. Do you recall that?
Yes.
All right. I'm starting on what is marked as DOJ 005088. Does that start with a communication between yourself and Jason Mengel on March 11th of 2018?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to leave that with you,
Okay.
and I'm going to pull it up here a second, and I'm going to go through some of this, and I want you to tell me if I'm reading them accurately, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, my computer decided to not like me a moment here, so just give me a second. Fifth one down is a message from Jason indicating I would have been proud to be your husband, correct?
Correct.
And you respond, I know, correct?
Correct.
And then he responds, and raise your kiddos, correct?
Correct.
And then you respond, you know your children will be raised so well, correct?
Correct.
And continue on, and that's a fact, correct?
Correct.
And then continue on, I'm weirdly good at mothering, correct?
Correct.
If you go to 5094, the very last text on that page, you state, or Instagram message, I should say.
The bench, please.
Pregnancy you had if you ever tried to have children with anyone else, correct?
You said portraying. Did you mean betraying?
Betraying, yes.
Yes.
And you continue on with the next page, top of it. It's a deep feeling, and that's just it, correct?
Correct.
And then you say, another one from you, can't shake it and feel dumb and silly about it, correct?
Correct.
And then you say, hurts to know I'll never be able to have a child, but I just know what would feel right to me, and that's all, correct?
Correct.
And continue on, I feel so strongly when I feel, and it scares me a lot of the time, correct?
Correct.
And continue on, I'm passionate in love, and I'm hate, and then correct? And I assume hate was not what you meant there, right?
Yes.
All right. And you corrected the next one to in, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then next one is I don't know, correct?
Correct.
And then Jason replies, me either as, correct?
Correct.
And you state, you state next, I'm sorry, correct?
Correct.
And Jason then replies, I don't want kids with anyone but you, correct?
Correct.
And you state, that's how I feel also, correct?
Correct.
It just feels wrong, correct?
Correct.
I'm not going to ask the next.
Okay.
Going to go on. And on the next page, which would be 5096, the second text or second Instagram message down is, it's not because how cute and the wonderful genetics we pass on, it's, and then you continue, more emotional and ancient, correct?
Correct.
And then all right, I think that's it for that particular exhibit. Thank you. I'll take that back for now. Actually, no, why don't you keep that? So that was keep that for now. That was on March 11th, correct? Those Instagram messages we were just
Yes.
talking about? All right. Now, a short time later, on or about March 19th, you got a call from Jason, correct?
Correct.
All right. And in that phone call, he told you that Jenna Van de Zand had given him some additional details about your relationship with Alex Woodworth, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, he told you that Jenna had told him about an incident where you were in the shower with Alex, correct? Not introducing.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Yes.
All right. And you came out of the bathroom in a towel, correct?
Okay, now I'm gonna approach it.
I,
Okay. Well, I guess I'm not exactly
Can we
sure what it is you
I'll
object to.
explain.
No, I think, is this about the same thing we had the sidebar about?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and is this,
I've got, yes, two more questions.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
All
DeFore.
right. So Jenna told Jason, and then he told you that you would come out of the shower with just a towel on, correct?
from what I remember, yes.
All right. And then the last part of that conversation that Jenna had with, Jenna Van de Zand had with Jason Mengel was that Jenna told Jason that you had told Matt Schreiner that you had just broken up with Jason, and isn't that great, correct?
I don't remember exactly, no, what I had said to Matt or if I talked to him.
I'm not asking you what you said to Matt Schreiner on,
Okay.
you know, when you, in that thing, I'm asking you, isn't it correct that Jason told you that Jenna told him that you had told that to Matt Schreiner, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. After telling you about that, Jason hung up, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you called Jenna Van de Zand, correct?
Yes.
And told her she had to fix this, correct?
I don't believe those are my exact words, but I was just kind of like, what's going on?
You wanted her to clear it up with Jason, correct?
And not exactly, I wouldn't say I wanted her to clear it up with him. He knew everything that had happened already. It's just, I was like,
So-
can you talk to him about this? He's angry and frustrated.
So you wanted her to talk to him about it, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then either on the 20th or the 21st, Jason gave you the letter that Jenna Van de Zand had sent, correct?
I don't know the exact date, but at some point he had given me the letter.
And in that letter, you read the letter, correct?
Yes, I read it.
And Jenna essentially said she was washing her hands of the situation, correct?
Yes.
Can you turn to, you still have Exhibit 420 up there?
That is correct.
You turn to, it's towards the end, and unfortunately my copy here doesn't have the DOJ page numbers on it, but it would be, I believe, 5361.
I have that page pulled up, yes.
All right, and is the top message on there one from Jason to you that says he said this isn't usual Jason breakup behavior?
Yes.
All right, great. This Instagram exchange appears to be around 1707, which would be around 5:07 p.m. on March 21st.
Yes, early in the morning.
All right. And
Wait a minute, I'm confused. Is this UTC or is this Wisconsin?
this is Wisconsin time. This exhibit converted everything to Wisconsin time.
Okay, so just so it's clear to me, I'm sorry, Council. 17, you said 1707?
Yes, which would be 5:07.
Oh, in the evening. Is that
Correct.
what you're referring to?
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
All right. And let's go towards the bottom. Jason sends a text here. It's the second last one on there. Says, I'm worried right now. If I sleep, what will happen? Correct?
Correct.
And continues, what will I dream? Correct?
Correct.
And continues on, going on 4 months of this restless sleeping on a couch. Correct?
Correct.
And the next text is, and the new trauma really draining my hope, correct?
Correct.
And what he's referring to there by the new trauma is the information he got from Jenna Van de Zandt, correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right. And then you respond, if you let yourself only think of negative things before you sleep, you let yourself lose, correct?
Correct.
And you state you become nothing, correct?
Correct.
And he responds, I can give hope, correct?
Correct.
But then continues on, but I feel like I lost mine, correct?
Correct.
And continues on, I'll faking it till it returns, correct?
Correct.
And you respond, yes, it's hard to try and stop thoughts, but it's not hard to replace them in positive ways. And the more you do it, the better it will get, correct?
Correct.
And continue on, sorry if I seem slightly distracted. I'm filling out an application also, correct?
Correct.
And then Jason replies, I was drinking enough to forget and see her, correct?
Correct.
Literally, it continues on, literally how sad is that, correct?
Correct.
And you respond, I'm right here, correct?
Correct.
And continue on, each time you say that, you throw her away, correct?
Correct.
And continue on and push her further and further down, correct?
Correct.
And continue on, that's how I feel, correct?
Correct.
And then Jason responds, you know what I mean, correct?
Correct.
And then continues, the idea of you,
Correct.
the one, correct?
Correct.
The girl to prove me wrong, correct?
Correct.
Everything I never knew I always wanted, correct?
Correct.
And you respond, yes, but I'm not an idea. She never was. I am a human. She's alive, fighting harder than, correct?
Correct.
Just know that and respect her, correct?
Correct.
And then Jason responds, I can, correct?
Correct.
Also continues on, but I also can't hold my tongue. Now speaking thoughts isn't going to help either of us, correct?
Correct.
And continues, kind of what got us in this situation, correct?
Correct. I think he might have meant not speaking.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And we're going to continue down a little bit. Going to, it should be 5365 at the bottom. Are you there?
Yes.
The second last message is one from Jason indicating, do you want me to call, correct?
Correct.
And now we're at about 1853, which would be about 6:53 p.m.
Yes.
All right. And you respond, yeah, please, correct?
That is correct.
And then continuing to the next page, about halfway down, right after it indicates that Journal 2 and Journal 1 were last updated. Do you see those?
Yes.
All right. It says there was a message from Jason indicating was nice talking, correct?
That is correct.
And you say very nice, correct?
That is correct.
And he then states, hope you feel a little better, correct?
Correct.
And you respond, I do. I hope you also, correct?
Correct.
And you state, it's nice to hear a voice that makes me calm, correct?
Correct.
And Jason then responds, all things considered, I miss your voice, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And you respond, well, you know, it's the same for me, correct?
Correct.
And then skipping a couple, it says, truly it was nice talking, let's keep it up, correct?
Correct.
And he replies, we should try, correct?
Correct.
And then states, with you working, it's going to be less often, correct?
Correct.
And he says, and same here, hopefully, correct?
Correct.
And you then respond, good days, bad days, I'm happy to talk. Oh, don't worry, plenty of time between work and sleep to talk with the jobs I'll be having, and I'll happily talk, correct?
Correct.
And continue on, don't forget I also have the phone next to me at night. Here, if late night you really need to call, correct?
Correct.
And Jason responds, good to know, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then asks you what time you're thinking of coming Wednesday, correct?
Correct.
Right. And this is an Instagram message that was on March 21st of 2018, correct?
That is correct.
All right, which would have been a Wednesday, correct?
Yes,
All right, because we know March 22nd was a Thursday, correct?
correct.
So this is referring to the next week, meaning March 28th, correct?
Yes,
All right. And continues on, and do you have to work that night, correct?
correct.
And continues on, and do I need anything prepared, correct?
Correct.
And then you respond, well, the appointment was for at 1, and yes, I worked that night at 9:45, 10 p.m., correct?
Correct.
And then state, I would just bring your IDs and stuff, correct?
Correct.
And then all right, let's continue to page 5370.
I'm there, yes.
All right, and do you see the text that said "Pops will be proud"?
Yes,
And then that came from Jason, correct?
correct.
And this is at about 8:31 p.m. It says 2031.
Yes,
And then he responds 9:19, correct?
correct.
And then you state life starts now, correct?
Correct.
And Jason's response to that is no more excuses, correct?
Correct.
No more lies, correct?
Correct.
And you respond, I thought about it a lot, and I think I'll call Wintership to return the tattoo gift so I can for sure pay for therapy, correct?
Correct.
And respond, continue on. You were wearing some jeans, correct?
Yes.
Right. And in fact, you told Detective Proc that you had made those jeans, correct?
Yes, they were very large when I bought them, and I really liked them, so I had to tailor the waist in quite a bit.
Ma'am, my question is, you told Detective Proc that you made those jeans, correct?
Just have to answer the question.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Once you got to Alex's apartment the second time,
Yes.
you knocked on the door the second time, correct?
Yes, knocked on the door.
And then you saw Mr. Studing, correct?
Yes, I seen Dave.
And eventually Alex came down and answered the door, correct?
Yes.
And you, without any question, went up to Alex's room with him, correct?
There was a brief conversation before we went upstairs, yes.
Right. But then eventually you went up to his room, correct?
Correct.
Didn't protest that at all, correct?
That was our meeting space.
You didn't protest that at all,
No.
correct? You didn't say, let's meet down here in the living room, let's talk outside, let's talk in my car, anything like that, correct?
No, I was comfortable going to his room.
Right. And you had no idea if Mr. Studing was staying, leaving, what he was doing, correct?
No, I just assumed he was home.
And went into Alex's room, correct?
Correct?
Door was closed, correct?
Yep. Yes.
And you said you started talking to him about your relationship with him, correct?
Yes, and many other things.
And you told Alex, in that conversation, that you thought that your relationship with him was wrong, correct?
Not that it was just wrong, that I had a lot of mixed feelings about it, and that it shouldn't really have gone the way it did.
Question is, you told Alex that it made you feel really like gross and like wrong and things like that, correct?
I don't remember specifically saying it on that day, no.
You told Detective Prock that that's what you told Alex, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you asked Alex if he felt the same way about the relationship, correct?
I believe I asked him questions, yes.
And Alex told you he didn't feel the same way about it, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. In fact, he didn't feel guilty at all about your relationship, correct?
Yes, he didn't feel guilty at all.
While you were in Alex's room, he never threatened you at all, correct?
No.
Never told you he was going to harm you, correct?
Correct.
Never told you that he wanted to have sex with you one more time, correct?
Correct.
And then Jason got there at some point in time, correct?
Yes.
Came into the bedroom,
Yes.
you, correct? You didn't tell Jason that there were any problems, correct?
Correct.
In fact, told Jason everything's fine, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
And then Jason left for a time, correct? He left, right?
Well, he went downstairs and outside waited by my car.
So he left from Alex's bedroom,
From the
correct?
bedroom, yes.
And you stayed in Alex's bedroom for at least a little while after Jason left, correct?
Not long after, no.
You stayed in Alex's bedroom for a little while after Jason left, correct?
A little while, yes.
And then you left, correct?
Yes.
Alex left the
Yes.
bedroom, correct?
Yes.
And you went outside at that point, correct?
Yes.
And when you went outside, the Eau Claire police officers were there, correct?
That is correct.
There were two of them, right?
Yes.
And they asked you if everything's okay, and you told them everything's fine, right?
Yep. Yes.
And at the time you met with the Eau Claire Police Department, you knew about all the things you testified about that related to your relationship with Alex previously, correct?
Yes.
You knew all about these journal entries or these essays that you talked about, correct?
Yes.
You knew at that time all about the things you testified about your prior sexual relationship with Alex Woodworth, correct?
They weren't on my mind at the time, but yes.
And you knew all about the things that you've testified this morning that made you uncomfortable about your relationship with Alex, correct?
Yes.
And despite that, you told the police that everything was fine, correct?
At that time, during that part of the day, I believed everything was fine. That is correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask that everything before that is correct be stricken as unresponsive to my question.
No, Judge, I would object to that. Many witnesses have added something in as they've explained their answers. They're entitled to explain.
I'm just going to let the answer stand. Go ahead. Continue, please.
And your plan was at that point in time to go someplace public to talk to Alex, correct?
It's what we talked about, yes. It was
Something.
on our minds, yes.
Something like a park, correct?
Yes, we had mentioned it together.
And you were driving when you left from there, correct?
That is correct.
Oh, by the way, when you were there, Officer O'Neill asked to see your driver's license, correct?
That is correct.
And he asked you if you could find it, correct?
Correct.
And your license was in your wallet, correct?
Correct.
All right. Your wallet was in that center console of the car, correct?
I believe so.
Well, in fact, you testified on direct
Yes.
that
Yes, it
was
was.
there, correct?
That is correct.
Center console also was where the knife was, correct?
I don't know exactly where the knife was. I believe it was in the center console.
All right, and you told Officer O'Neill you couldn't find your driver's license, correct?
I think I was having trouble shuffling around. Middle console is full of a lot of papers and things also.
You told Officer O'Neill you
Yes, that
couldn't
I was having
find
trouble
his
finding it.
driver's
Yes,
license, correct?
that is correct.
Can you describe your wallet for us?
Just kind of a regular wallet.
How big is it?
Smaller, just a regular leather wallet. Your
I mean,
typical
is it
wallet.
a wallet that you put in a pocket, or is it a larger wallet that you put in your purse?
It's a smaller one. I don't usually carry a purse.
So, after you're done talking to the officers, they leave, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And then you talked for a short time with Jason Mengel, correct?
That is correct.
And then drove off, correct?
Yes, we left.
And when you drove off, you were the one driving the car, correct?
That is correct.
And you didn't, Alex had gotten in your car, correct?
Yes.
Didn't tell him you didn't want him in there, did you?
No.
Had no issue, in fact, with Alex coming along with you, right?
No.
You wanted to continue to talk to Alex, correct?
Yes. Sure.
Putting up here, marked and admitted as Exhibit 419B. You see that?
Yes.
All right. And that, you recognize this is Alex's residence right here?
Yes, I can see that.
And you were driving, right? Correct?
Are we speaking of after we had left the residence?
Right, after you left the residence, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you said you wanted to go to a park, correct?
Yes.
You were familiar with Phoenix Park because, in fact, you mentioned Phoenix Park to
Yes.
Detective Prock, correct?
Yes.
Phoenix Park is right here, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And Half Moon Park is right here, correct?
That is correct.
Both of those are within a few blocks of Alex's residence, correct?
Yes.
You didn't drive to either of those parks, did you?
It wasn't really concrete, so I just drove.
You didn't drive to either
No.
of those parks, did you?
No.
Instead, you headed west on Cameron Street, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And just basically headed out of town, correct?
Yes, I'm just basically.
You wanted to be in a place where it was in public, correct?
Correct, that had
That
been
would
mentioned.
imply other people being present, correct?
Yes, that would imply that.
Phoenix Park would be a location where other people would be present, wouldn't it?
At times, yes.
All right, and Half Moon Park would be a place where other people would be present, correct?
At times, yes.
And you didn't go to either of those locations, correct?
No.
You passed by a park as you got into Dunn County, correct?
I'm not aware of any parks in Dunn County.
Oh, you drove on County Highway E, correct?
No, I'm going to object. That's
I-
misstating the testimony because she said
Really
they
don't.
switched drivers and,
Well, she said she didn't know when.
Yeah, it's not clear when and where they switched drivers, so you may continue this line of questioning.
I honestly was just driving. I wasn't really paying attention to where I was going. I was just on a road driving.
Going to someplace public to talk, correct?
That had been mentioned, but sometimes we drive around and we talk.
Now, you said that as you're driving, you started to feel uncomfortable, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Didn't turn around and just come back into town or ask Alex to get out of the car? Didn't do either of those?
No.
Now, I seem to recall when you talked to Detective Prock that you told him that Mr. Sipple seemed familiar. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you know, now at least certainly, Mr. Sipple lives on 430th Ave, correct?
That is correct.
And 430th Ave happens to be the exact road that you turned off of when you turned off of County Highway E, correct?
Yes, that's the road Alex turned off of.
And you told Detective Prock, actually, strike that, withdraw that. The stop along 430th was at the very first field road that happens as you got to 430th, correct?
Yes, that's where he had stopped driving.
And I want to talk a little bit about the circumstances once you got there. You said that the vehicle got stuck and just couldn't get it out, correct?
The first time it got stuck, I maneuvered it, but the second time, no, I could not get it out.
Yep. And that's what I meant. And
Okay,
thank you
you.
for clarifying that.
Yes.
Once it got stuck, you said you sat for a period of time on the trailer hitch, correct?
Yes, after looking around a bit.
5-10 minutes you sat on the trailer hitch?
I can't tell you an exact time, no.
Short period, long period?
It felt like a long period of time.
All right. You don't know though?
No.
All right. And then Alex came up to you and talked to you, correct?
He didn't really speak. It was more of an action.
Okay. He hugged you, you said, correct?
From behind, he approached me and he hugged me.
So let's talk about your getting in the back seat.
Yes.
You said you got in the back seat and your story today was that you laid down on your back, correct?
Yes.
Right. Isn't it true that you told Detective Prock?
No, I'm going to object. That misstates the testimony. She said she went on the back seat, she was curled up in a certain way, and then she turned on her back.
Yes.
Well, jury heard the testimony, so they decide.
You told Detective Prock that you were actually on, and well, all right, well, let's just complete it then. Your story that you told the jury today was that when Alex got into the that Alex supposedly attacked you, correct?
Correct.
You never told Detective Prock that the defendant put the scarf over your eyes, did you?
No, I had not said that.
And if I understood your story as you told it to us today, this morning, or actually this afternoon, you need Alex in the groin and the knife fell out of his hand, correct?
Correct.
And then you grabbed the knife, correct?
Correct.
Right. It's not what you told Detective Prock, is it?
I don't believe so. I would have.
In fact, you told Detective Prock that you grabbed the knife by the blade, correct?
I believe I've said that, yes.
All right, and got it away from Alex by grabbing it by the blade, correct?
I might have said that, yes.
And you said that it hurt a lot when you did that, correct?
Correct.
Judge, if he's going to do that, I just asked that there be exact lines and that she be shown a transcript because she testified she doesn't remember exactly what she said, but she's acknowledged whatever's in there is accurate regardless of her memory. So I would ask she be given an opportunity to look at the transcript before she answers her questions.
This is cross-examination, Your Honor.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Could I have Exhibit 196, please?
Is that the 23rd or the 24th? Counsel?
Exhibit 196
The
is
24th.
one of the articles referenced by Dr. Tillotson.
Oh. I'm sorry. I'd like to approach.
Correct?
Yes.
So now your testimony was that you got the knife out by kneeing Alex in the groin, correct?
That is correct.
Let's talk about where you were when you stabbed Alex various times. First off, which hand did you hold the knife in?
I assume it was my right hand.
So you were holding the knife in your right hand, correct?
Correct.
All right. And if I understood your testimony correctly, there was one time you stabbed Alex when he was outside of the car,
Yes.
and that was in his side.
Yes.
Which side?
I can't answer that.
Okay. You don't remember which side?
I just remember reaching around and stabbing Alex. Yes.
In the side.
Yes.
All right. And he had his coat on at the time, correct?
Yes.
And you also stabbed, the rest of the times you stabbed him, he was in the car, correct?
Correct.
He was on top of you, correct?
No.
You stabbed him, when you stabbed Alex in the side of his head, he was in the car, correct?
Correct.
When you stabbed him in the genitals, he was inside the car, correct?
Yes.
When you stabbed him 3 times in the left side of his neck, he was inside the car, correct?
That had happened in the car, yes.
Right. When you stabbed him the other 2 times in the left side, he would have been in the car then, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And when you stabbed him in the stomach, he was in the car, correct?
Yes.
When you stabbed him in the right leg, he was in the car, correct?
I don't know precisely each wound. I just know all of this happened in the car, yes.
And, well, and you were here when Dr. Mills testified to where Alex was all stabbed, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you stabbed him then the 2 times in the back when he was in the car, correct?
Yes.
And the 3 times that you sliced across his neck, he was in the car, correct?
Correct.
Where was Alex in relation to you specifically when you stabbed him in the head?
He was facing me.
Right. How close to you was he?
He was very close to me.
Within inches?
I can't tell you within inches. He was in front of me. He was face to face with me.
You could see his face?
Yes.
All right. And you said you didn't have your glasses on at the time, correct?
Correct.
Right. So if you could see his face, he was probably pretty close to you, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you stabbed him using your right hand, correct?
I stabbed him, yes.
And you said you were using your right hand to stab him, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And when you sliced him across the neck those 3 times, was he also?
I'm going to object to sliced across the neck 3 times, and it's been asked to answer.
Well, in a different way. You may proceed. Overruled.
All right, well, let's do it this way. When you sliced him across the neck the first time, He was right in front of you then as well?
I don't remember distinct separate times.
Okay. Well, when you sliced him across the neck, then all 3 times he was right in front of you, correct?
Yes.
Within inches?
I don't know within inches. He was
What?
in front of me.
Okay. Again, you could see him at that point in time, correct?
I can see a person is in front of me. It's if I can see detail or not.
Just so that we're clear, you took the word boy and carved that into your arm yourself, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Did you take off that blue flannel shirt before you did that?
I believe so, no.
Right. Did you cut through this blue flannel shirt to do that?
Yes.
Right. Did you take off the blue, and I'm sorry, I didn't understand exactly what you said. It's spotted, or it's not spotted, it's actually got something else on it.
It appears to have small plants on it.
Okay. Did you take that shirt off before you carved boy into your arm?
No, I hadn't taken my clothes off.
All right. So you just cut through those shirts?
I cut through a shirt. I don't remember if my other shirts were pushed up or if something else was in the way. I remember cutting through my blue shirt, yes.
I'm sorry?
I remember cutting through my flannel, my
Okay.
outer shirt.
And the other shirt was underneath it, right?
Yes.
And the spot where you had boy carved into your arm was up almost to your elbow where it started, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And actually, Your Honor, just so that we're clear on it, could you switch to my computer, please? I'm showing Exhibit 317 at this point in time. That's your arm, correct?
Correct.
All right, and it appears to be almost up to your elbow where the B starts, correct?
It's lower than that, but it's near, yes.
All right, and then continues down to about probably halfway down your forearm, correct?
I would say the word itself is in the middle of my forearm.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so after you did, and you were, I think you said by the trunk of the car when you did that?
Yes.
All right, and after you did that is when you took off running from there?
Yes.
All right, down that muddy road?
It was stumbling, falling. It wasn't like I was running, but
Okay.
running in a sense,
All right.
yes.
That's fine, and fair enough. But that's when you took off down the road, correct?
Correct.
And went right from the trunk down the road, correct?
Correct.
Can we switch to my computer again? I have Exhibit 72 up. So can you, and here I'm going to give you a laser pointer. Could you show us on here, he was laying down on top of his coat?
That is correct.
What was on top of his coat? His head or some other part of him?
His body was not, he was on top of his coat. I can't specifically tell you what parts, exactly what were on top of the coat. He was laying on top of the coat.
And I think you said you took his phone, correct?
I grabbed it from the car, yes.
All right. And you took his phone so you could call for help, correct?
Yes.
Didn't dial 911, did you?
No.
Didn't call Jason Mango, did you?
No.
Didn't call, in fact, anybody for help, did you?
That's what I wanted to do, but I couldn't.
You didn't call
No.
anyone for help, did you?
No.
Where did you grab Alex's phone from?
The car.
I'm sorry?
The car.
Where in the car?
It was in the back of the car.
Where in the back of the car?
I'd seen it in the footwell.
I'm sorry?
I had seen it inside. I spotted the phone inside the footwell.
Passenger side or driver's side?
It was in the footwell. It was just amongst.
You don't know whether it was passenger side or the driver's side?
I remember just grabbing it from where your feet would go in the car.
Again, my question is, you don't remember if it was the passenger side or the driver's side?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. And you also took the knife along,
Yes.
carrying the knife in your right hand, correct? Or your left hand, I'm sorry, correct?
Yes.
The phone was in your right hand,
Yes.
and then you said you fell and the phone broke and you just kind of left it there?
Yes, the phone had busted a part of it.
And then but you kept the knife with you at that point?
It was still in my hand, yes.
And you carried that knife until you got to the driveway of Mr. Sippel's daughter's residence, correct?
I had dropped it in the ditch, yes.
And that's where you dropped it in the ditch, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Just before you got to that driveway, correct?
I don't know exactly. I've seen the photos, so I know where it was, but from my memory, I don't know exactly what place I dropped the knife.
And in the photos, it shows it dropped just before that driveway, correct?
Yes, that is what the photos show.
And then you walked up to the back door of Mr. Sippel's residence, correct?
Yes, I found my way there.
You walked up to the back door of Mr. Sippel's residence, correct?
Yes,
All right. And rang the doorbell a number of times, correct?
rapidly.
Rang the doorbells a number of times, correct?
Correct.
And when you got there, you went there to try to get help, correct?
Yes,
And first thing you asked Mr. Sippel to do was to call or take you to a hospital, correct?
that's what I've heard, yes.
All right. You did not ask Mr. Sippel to call the police, did you?
No,
All right. You didn't ask Mr. Sippel to make sure no one else could get there, correct? Get in there, correct?
no,
You didn't ask Mr. Sippel if he had anything to protect you at that point, correct?
no,
But you did ask him to take you to the hospital.
yes, I've heard that, yes.
That's what you asked him, correct?
Yes,
You never told Mr. Sippel that the person that you are claiming assaulted you was lying severely wounded back where your car was stuck in the mud, did you?
no,
You never told Mr. Sippel that you had stabbed Alex Woodworth?
no,
Shortly after you arrived at Mr. Sippel's house, law enforcement officers began to arrive, correct?
yes,
All right. A number of them arrived at the residence, correct?
yes,
And at that point in time, you knew there were all these law enforcement there, right?
yes.
You knew you were safe at that point in time, didn't you?
What is hard for me with this is that I don't remember much
Ma'am?
from that interaction.
If the answer is no, that's fine. You can say no. If you don't know the answer, that's fine.
Yes,
But just tell me, the question is, you knew you were safe at that point in time, correct?
I
She has
don't
a right
know.
to explain if a question and can it be answered by yes or no? Other witnesses have certainly done it. This court has permitted it. And I'd ask that the same consideration be given by Mr. DeFore to Ms. McCandless.
Well, that's just fine. If she can't give a yes or no answer, can't answer the question, then you tell him you don't remember. Can't answer the question.
I
That's
don't.
it, Judge.
I don't remember. No.
Okay, fair enough. And after law enforcement got there, you got in the ambulance with the paramedics, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you didn't tell, by the way, you didn't tell law enforcement that your car was back stuck on that mud road or that farm road, correct?
Yes.
You didn't tell the law enforcement officers that first got there that you had just stabbed Alex Woodworth a number of times, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't tell Mr. Wayne, the paramedic, that there was this other person that was lying there with a bunch of stab wounds in him, did you?
No.
Right. Didn't tell him that maybe Alex was dead or dying there and needed help, did you?
No.
And you got to the hospital, correct?
Yes.
Right. At the hospital, you met first with a female nurse, correct?
I don't remember much. I remember a lot of different interactions from the hospital, but specifics are very hard for me.
Right. But you didn't tell that nurse where your car was, correct?
That is correct.
All right. In fact, at the hospital, you told people at the hospital that what happened at Owen Park, didn't you?
That's what I've seen and heard, yes.
That's what you told them, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you knew at that point in time that nothing happened at Owen Park, didn't you?
Yes.
Did not tell that first nurse that you met with that somebody was attempting to sexually assault you, did you?
Can you please repeat that question?
Sure. The question was, you didn't tell that first nurse that you met with that someone was attempting to sexually assault you, did you?
I don't remember what I told the first nurse.
Then it's true that what you told them is you don't remember what happened, correct?
That is correct.
And then you met with the same nurse, Jennifer Morris, correct?
Yes.
And you knew at that point in time you were safe, correct?
Yes.
Right. You did not tell Ms. Morris what happened to you, correct?
No.
In fact, you told again Ms. Morris that it happened at Owen Park, didn't you?
I don't remember saying it, but if that is in the transcript, then yes.
And you didn't tell her that you had been sexually assaulted, correct?
I don't remember what I said to her, no, but
In fact, what you told Ms. Morris was you couldn't remember, correct?
correct.
And then you spoke as well to Kelly Swartos, correct?
Yes.
All right. And at that point in time, I think we heard from one of your interviews, you were in a unit that was locked, correct?
Correct.
So you knew at that point in time as well you're safe, correct?
Yes, I had known I was safe.
And you didn't tell Ms. Swartos what happened to you with Alex Woodworth, did you?
I was not ready, no.
Right. You didn't tell her, correct?
Correct.
Right. You told her you couldn't remember, correct?
Yes.
And at that point in time, you knew what happened, didn't you?
There was only bits and pieces of what had happened that was coming back to me.
You knew those bits and pieces, correct?
Yes.
And you knew that it had happened in that farm road near Mr. Sippel's residence, correct?
I didn't know exactly where that road was, but I know that it had happened on that road.
And you knew that you had stabbed Alex Woodworth repeatedly, correct?
Yes.
And you knew the story that you told earlier today about Alex attacking you with a knife, correct?
No, I don't understand your question.
You knew what you testified about earlier today about Alex attacking you with a knife, correct?
I only knew parts of what had happened at that time.
But you didn't tell Ms. Swartos any of that, correct?
No.
All you told her is you can't remember anything, correct?
Correct.
But I don't know how much longer the court wants to go. I'm fine to keep going as long as the court wants to, but I've got a ways to go yet.
How much more cross do you believe?
Probably more than an hour.
All right. And Ms. Vishney, I assume there would be redirect for a substantial period of time?
I would not assume that, Judge.
Okay.
I'm not even sure there's going to be any.
All right. Well, then I think this is a good time to break for the evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what your schedule is, but I was just sitting here wondering whether you had to be out of here by someone by 5. So, just want to again go over this instruction. Your duty is to decide the case based only on the evidence presented at trial and the law given you by the court. Anything you may see or hear outside the courtroom is not evidence. Do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all of the evidence is presented and I have instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else until your final deliberations in the jury room. If you come into contact with the parties, lawyers, or witnesses, do not speak with them. Do not listen to any conversation about this case. Do not research any information that you personally think might be helpful to you in understanding the issues presented. Do not investigate this case on your own or visit the scene. Do not read any newspaper reports or listen to any news reports on radio or television about this trial. You can tell how outdated this instruction is. Don't read anything on the internet. Don't any other form of media that you may get information from. Do not consult dictionaries, computers, websites, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party or witness in the case. Any information you obtain outside the courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. Relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to review it, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you are serving on this jury. Do not use a computer, cell phone, or other electronic device with communication capabilities to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by blog, email, text message, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, or the like, or in any other way on or off the computer. Do not permit anyone to communicate with you, and if anyone does so, despite your telling them not to, you should report that to me. I appreciate that it is tempting when you go home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, again, your neighbors, your friends, relatives, but you may not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decisions in this case. After the trial is over, you are free to communicate with anyone in any manner. These rules are intended to ensure that jurors remain impartial throughout the trial. If any juror has reason to believe that another juror has violated these rules, you should also report that to me. If jurors do not comply with these rules, it could result in a new trial involving additional time and significant expense to the parties and the taxpayers. You are to decide the case solely on the evidence offered and received at trial. Okay, so that is it for today. I'd ask that you report tomorrow again so that we can begin testimony right at 8:30 and have a good evening. Okay, all rise.